I was originally going to save this topic for tomorrow, but it's so fitting that I do this topic right now since I've already posted a segment for this called Addressing Mammy. I don't really know if you should watch this video, then watch that, or read that, then watch this video. But Mammy is the archetype of a black woman who's either crass or obnoxious. She's always fat. She's always very dark-skinned. So some people might be asking themselves, well, you're talking about a black woman. Why would you put up pictures of comedians Dave Chappelle and Cat Williams? Well, if you go to YouTube, you will note that Cat Williams and Dave Chappelle have done interviews in which they confess that they have a problem with wearing dresses because there's been this issue of there's nothing funnier than a black man wearing a dress. Just look it up. It's all over YouTube. So these guys have, in essence, spoken out against that degraded archetype of Mammy that actually serves to hurt black women. So I'll leave that up to you to do that because, again, I'm not going to do everything for you. Let's face it, Hollywood has a little nasty little obsession. Tyler Perry isn't the first black man to be a big black man wearing a suit and wearing a dress and degrading the overall image of a black woman. Okay? Before him, there was Eddie Murphy, there was Martin Lawrence. And now it's rumored also that Kevin Hart has suddenly also decided to wear a dress. So it's not as if it started with Madea. So I personally don't believe that Madea should take all of the blame for participating in that archetype. But because there are a lot of films about Madea these days, that character serves as a reason that it's a problem. And also Madea is fat and loud, obnoxious, and always in trouble. If you see the picture of Tootsie, too bad, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't like it. If you don't like Tootsie, too bad. Looks familiar. There's nothing worse than this. Let's be honest. When people see this, and I'm black, and I know this is mean, but sometimes when I see it, I just cross the street. Not so much because of skin color. For me, it's because that person fits that stereotype, and they'll just tell you, oh, it's just my culture, that's just the way I am, but there are historical significances that are the reason these people act this way. Though there are people who would lump most of these women as hood rats, when they are of significant weight, they are still called Mammy when you break down the layers of what Mammy is. The images you see here are pretty accurate of such. Okay. Where did the name Mammy come from, and why do black people call it that? This woman in the picture you see is a very light-skinned black woman. Her name is Mary Ellen Pleasant, also known at the end of her life as Mamie Pleasant. Information about her is very vague and elusive and is known to leave out details simply because I think she was an evasive character in real life. What I do know so far, based on my research, is that she may have been born into slavery to a voodoo priestess in Augusta, Georgia, between the years of 1814 through 1817, and her photo reveals that she is of mixed race. Of course, you see that. There is a debate if her white father actually did or didn't accept her from birth or after she got a certain age. She's called the mother of civil rights in California. What is widely accepted is that she was married to a white plantation owner and worked with her husband as a slave stealer to assist escaped slaves during the Underground Railroad. She was also linked to abolitionist John Brown, who led the takeover of Harper's Ferry Armory in what is now Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. When Brown was captured, it was believed that he had evidence in his pocket proving that Mary Ellen Pleasant helped him finance his rebellion, or she was one of the contributors. Is it possible that she was an evasive person because of her work in the Underground Railroad? I certainly think so. Some people would debate that. She is also said to have stayed around New Orleans for a while to learn more about voodoo from Marie Laveau, to own up to her mother's heritage as a voodoo priestess. What you see here is a thin biracial woman who doesn't actually fit the Mamie archetype, yet she's called Mamie. Why? Mamie stems from losing most of her fortune at the end of her life due to those trying to tarnish her name. There is a post on that archetype and where it comes from, and you guys can look up the wet nurses who used to be dark-skinned black women, and also Aunt Jemima and all of that stuff, and that's where this archetype comes from. But the funny thing is, her being the original Mamie Pleasant for most of her life, she was a thin or fairly fit black woman. So, but this is where some of that image of Mamie comes from. Take a good look at your pictures here. You have two women that you know of. Some of you might know, most of you know who Isabel Sanford is in the color picture, but a lot of you, unless you have seen Gone with the Wind, don't really know who Hattie McDaniel is. These women in their career at some point played a poignant character who was either obnoxious or pushy or crass, and that added to the Mamie, because again, they're both dark-skinned women, they both are heavy set, and people don't stop to connect the dots, but yeah, it is what it is. Okay, Hattie McDaniel. She played her character's name in Gone with the Wind, seen here with Scarlett O'Hara, which we know is played by Vivien Leigh, very beautiful British-born actress. Hattie McDaniel played Mamie in Gone with the Wind, a film I've watched several times. I like it because I know the historical aspects of it, blase, blase. The first time I saw this film, I knew she was a stereotype, but I didn't immediately let it click and figure out what it was that made her that. I just didn't realize it was Mamie at the time. She was the first black woman in this country to win an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress as a result of playing the part of Mamie, which was the character's name in Gone with the Wind. She essentially won for the black community as a woman the first award playing a stereotype. Just let that sink in. This isn't a good thing. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to stop watching Gone with the Wind. I just want people to see that films, American films, are a window into how things were back then. Okay, in the film, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Isabel Sanford, she played a black maid named Matilda Binks called Tilly to a white liberal family, the mother and father being the late Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, which I think Spence Tracy, I've seen his old films, very phenomenal actor, loved his work. I've also watched this film several times. Her character loses her cool when the well-dressed, well-spoken, and well-educated Dr. Wade Prentice Jr., played by Sidney Poitier, arrives home with this liberal white family's young, beautiful white daughter. She upheld the stereotype and the view of a man of her own skin color as a usurper and a troublemaker while being loud and crass. Does that sound familiar? Again, you guys call it a hood rat. Sometimes it can be Mamie, and it's sometimes hard to distinguish the two. This film was the last one for legendary actor Spence Tracy, as I've told you before, and he died within days after it was either completed or released, and even up to her death, Katharine Hepburn couldn't bring herself to watch it, even though it has a cultural significance. If you haven't seen it, please do. I know it's one of those things where you say it can be offensive, but come on, even for our times, movies like Crash or whatever that movie was in the early 2000s have shown a lot worse racial portrayals. But the way in which it was handled in this film, if you go see it, you will see Mamie come out of her in the way she treats Sidney Poitier. To have a black woman treat a black man that way back then when blacks needed each other more than ever. The character of Tilly at times displayed more disdain towards Dr. Prentice than the white parents of the white woman he was engaged to. She showed a great dislike of him, and you're not attractive either, and la la la. Again, I'm not going to tell you everything. I just think that this is a classic movie that everyone should go watch, simply because it brings the essence of that out. Okay, so you guys are probably wondering, well, you put Cat Williams and Dave Chappelle on the front of this slide. Now, why is that? Black men have also participated throughout history in the degradation of the big, fat, crass black woman. They have contributed, again, I said, with Big Mama, with Medea, and all those other characters, the big, loud black woman. Black men are willing to put on a dress and be these characters in order to embarrass black women or to help Hollywood make the money off those stereotypes. I personally feel, based on the Medea character, on your Big Mama, and on some of the characters that Eddie Murphy played with the Crump family in one of those movie series, what I didn't like it, that it goes back as early as 1946 to this all-black film, Dirty Gertie from Harlem, U.S.A. Another film that I saw, and that's when I started to make my connections. This film is where I really began to open my eyes about Hollywood making fun of the black race at our expense and at our degradation, and that the big fat black woman has a lot to lose in that degradation. Actress Francine Everett played a seductress named Gertie LaRue that was a traveling singer, and the game she played with men on the island of Trinidad. So all they did was remove the T in Trinidad and just called the island Trinidad. Vaudeville actor Spencer Williams produced and distributed this film, as well as played the fortune teller you see in the other photo, called the Old Haggard. So he's essentially a black man in 1946, a big fat black man, dark skinned, with his head, with a rag wrapped around his head, just as Hattie McDaniel was, wearing a dress. Don't tell me it's not the same thing. You may not want to believe it is, but it is. When I first saw this film on TCM, I was shocked. Spencer Williams was not even a convincing woman. He just wasn't. He had a man-sounding voice wearing a dress. So if you can't even sound like a woman, even when Tyler Perry's Medea, he sounds like a woman. It's like, come on, dude. Like, you couldn't even sound like a woman. The point is, the black man wearing a dress to entertain the black community isn't a late 20th century to early 20th century concept. Black men dressing as annoying black women has been around far longer than anyone knows. Because I've yet to see a lot of black people, even on YouTube, that I listen to, and I won't say names because I respect these gentlemen and I love that they're talking about the black community, address this issue, and that this is where it come from. I might even post this video on YouTube. So let's discuss Spencer Williams a little bit more. Spencer Williams has always sold out his own skin color for fame. So it isn't a stretch for him to wear a dress and pretend to be a woman, because he's always sold out the black community. I mean, it's just the truth. His own mentor, while he was coming up, was another vaudeville, light-skinned, dark man, very handsome, by the way, named Burt Williams, a man who was black and known to dress in blackface. He's a black man that was in blackface. Look this stuff up. I'm not making it up. You can get mad at me all you want to. It's all over the internet. Go look it up. If you don't believe me, like I said, look it up. In the televised version of the radio show Amos and Andy, Spencer Williams played the part of Andy. And we know that the original Amos and Andy in blackface were originally two white gentlemen named Freeman Gosden and Charles Corwell. They wanted to take it to television and needed blacks to play that role, since on television back then, black people would have actually made a big deal out of two white men in blackface, as they had shown their outrage with Birth of a Nation. Another film you need to see. I've only seen that in chunks. I need to watch Birth of a Nation again. Everything that harmed the image of blacks besides Birth of a Nation can be attached to Amos and Andy. We know that's well known. Yet this man auditioned and became the televised Andy. So as far-fetched as it seems that he could just wear a dress and still sound like a man, he's always sold out. And that's how he made his money. Don't believe me? Look him up. Oddly enough, Francine Everett, the leading character in Dirty Gertie from Harlem, USA, arrived in Hollywood and was disillusioned with demeaning stereotypes within the Hollywood realm of films concerning blacks, and she retired from acting early. There are very few films she's done because she just didn't want a part of that degradation. She took a clerical job at Harlem Hospital and remained there till 1985. She would rather take a respective common career than to have allowed herself to continue to be a stereotype. Don't believe me? Again, look it up. Okay. Where blacks are concerned, it seems profitable for a man to dress as a woman and cut up. Black men also participate in that degradation of black women. And in that regard, I have a respect for Cat Williams and Dave Chappelle because they refuse to put on the dress. So I have to believe that consciously they knew on some level that this stereotype does indeed hurt blacks. Men participate in the entertainment of black women's stereotypes, and it's sad that black women laugh without getting the facts. Because Madea was funny to me for a while. I have to admit, I even just this year got rid of my tapes because I finally caught on. You know, the bottom line is there'll be some people where you're dumb, what took you so long? But the bottom line is I caught on. It was Dirty Gertie from Harlem, USA that compelled me to no longer give my money to foolishness. Again, a black man wearing a dress making fun of a big, fat, obnoxious, or crass black woman as a Mammy, I believe is traced back to that old Hollywood film. All right, so I am on Google Blogger, Let's Talk Race at etc. at blogspot.com, or you can send me an email at alabamatar@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope this enlightened you a little bit. If not, then also go read my post addressing Mammy that I put as a prelude to this. Thank you so much, and God bless.